The sea has always whispered to those who dare to listen. Waves rise and fall, carrying secrets older than memory itself. In the hush between tides, voices stir with stories untold. Among them is one tale, veiled in mist and mystery. It speaks of Poseidon, lord of the vast and endless deep. He was not only ruler, but also guardian of balance below. His trident commanded storms, yet his silence held greater power. For even gods must heed the ancient pulse of the sea. There, beneath fathoms where sunlight fades into shadow, lies a secret. Sailors feared to name it, for names give life to legend. They spoke instead in whispers of a presence vast and eternal. They called it the Kraken, not beast, but spirit of the abyss. And within it rests the heart, a rhythm that binds all waters. Some said it beat in time with every wave on every shore. Others claimed it was the first sound ever made by the ocean. Poseidon knew its truth was deeper than any mortal could fathom. And so begins our story, where myth and tide move as one. Listen closely, for the sea remembers. And tonight, it speaks again. The sea is never still, even when the horizon looks calm and endless. Beneath the shining skin of water, countless currents move in secret. They twist and weave like threads of a tapestry older than the world. At dawn, the waves are gentle, as if whispering lullabies to the shore. At night, the same waves roar with fury, shaking the courage of sailors. The sea holds two faces, one tender and one wild, both equally true. Legends grew from this restless nature, carried on the breath of the wind. Fishermen told stories to their children, warning them of unseen depths. Merchants spoke of sudden storms, born without warning from clear skies. Sailors swore they heard voices in the foam, calling their names softly. To live with the sea is to live with mystery, never fully at ease. Those who dared to venture far learned respect or paid with despair. Yet through every story, one thread remained constant, deep and haunting. It was the idea that the sea itself had a heartbeat of its own. Not the rush of waves, not the crash of storms, but something deeper. Something hidden below the trenches where light has never been. They said it pulsed in silence, like a drum that no ear could hear. Only the spirit could feel it, a rhythm older than time itself. And in that rhythm, many believed, lay the heart of the Kraken. Not a beast of claws and teeth, but a guardian of the abyss. Its heart was said to keep the ocean alive, vast and unbroken. Each tide that rose and fell was a breath drawn from that rhythm. Each storm that shook the coast was a whisper from its deep silence. Few dared speak its name, fearing the sea might listen too closely. The Kraken was not an enemy, yet not a friend to humankind. It belonged only to the waters, as stars belong to the night. Still, sailors felt its presence in moments when the sea turned strange. When the winds died suddenly, and the ocean grew heavy with pause. When gulls fled the sky, and dolphins vanished from the surface. In such moments, they said the Kraken stirred in its endless sleep. And in its stirring, the sea remembered its ancient power again. Poseidon himself, master of waves, often felt the change as well. He was the lord of tides, yet even he bowed to the deeper force. For the Kraken's heart was not a rival, but a mystery beyond reach. He sensed it in the stillness of the water after a storm's rage. He felt it in the rising calm when the moon pulled the tides. It was not fear he carried, but a solemn kind of reverence. The sea was his realm, but its soul belonged to the heart. And so, Poseidon guarded both the surface and the silence below. He listened when mortals prayed for safe passage across the waves. He watched when storms rose without reason, dark and heavy. In every mystery, he sought the hidden rhythm guiding the sea. And always, beneath it all, he felt the heartbeat waiting in the deep. The world above never knew how close they lived to that secret. But every drop of rain, every ripple, every tide told part of it. The restless sea was more than water and wind, more than storm. It was alive, ancient, and forever breathing with the Kraken's heart. And this was only the beginning of Poseidon's great discovery. Sailors feared the sea, yet they feared its legends even more than storms. Among those legends, one name rose again and again like a tide. The Kraken, whispered with trembling lips, carried both awe and dread. It was not seen often, but its presence haunted every long voyage. Maps marked empty waters, but sailors filled them with tales of shadow. They spoke of vast shapes moving below, too large to be whales. Some claimed to see waves form without wind, rolling from nothing. Others swore the sea itself bent downward, as if bowing to something. The Kraken was no ordinary creature, for no net could hold it. It was said to be as old as the sea, endless and vast. Its form shifted like mist in the memory of frightened sailors. To some, it was an island that breathed beneath the waves. To others, a forest of arms stretching out of the abyss. Yet none could agree, for none had seen it fully and lived. But one truth remained. Its name carried the weight of reverence. The Kraken was not merely a beast, but a force of the deep. Its heart was what truly drew whispers across centuries of tales. They said it beat like thunder, though silent to mortal ears. The heart was not flesh and bone, but a rhythm older than light. It held the sea's memory, its fury, its calm, and its breath. Every creature of the ocean moved in harmony with that rhythm. From the smallest plankton to the mightiest whale, all felt its pulse. Without it, the waters would be empty, hollow, and lifeless forever. The Kraken's heart was not possession, but existence itself made eternal. And Poseidon, lord of waves, knew its secret better than any mortal. He knew that the heart was not a gift nor a treasure to hold. It was the balance that bound his realm and gave it meaning. Mortals mistook the Kraken for a terror sent to punish their pride. But Poseidon understood it as a guardian, silent yet eternal in duty. He often felt its echo when storms rose without reason in calm seas. He sensed its presence when tides shifted with sudden, strange rhythm. Even he, with all his might, knew he could not command it. The Kraken's heart did not belong to gods or mortals, only itself. Yet stories painted it with fear, as humans often fear the unknown. Children were told to listen to waves, for they hid the Kraken's breath. Sailors swore offerings calmed the waters, though the heart needed none. Every myth gave shape to the unseen, but truth lay deeper still. For the heart was never cruel, never kind, but always unchanging. It was not meant to harm, but to remind all life of the deep. Poseidon walked the shores in silence, hearing prayers rise with the tide. He carried no anger toward mortals who misunderstood the Kraken's name. For how could they know reverence when all they felt was fear? And so he watched, patient as the waves that return with the moon. He knew one day the truth would call him into the abyss itself. The whispers of the Kraken would rise louder than the crash of storms. The heart would show him what no eye had ever seen before. But until that time, the sea kept its secret close, and silence ruled. The Kraken remained unseen, its heart beating beneath, calm and eternal. And the world above continued to whisper, never knowing the truth. Poseidon ruled the seas with strength, yet his heart often carried unease. He felt changes in the waters long before mortals could sense them. The tides whispered differently, as though some rhythm had faltered below. Currents once smooth began to twist with restless, uneasy turns. The calm after storms lingered too long, heavy with strange silence. Whales sang in lower tones, their voices echoing with sorrow. Even dolphins, once playful, leapt less often under the silver moon. Poseidon listened, his trident steady, but his spirit stirred in doubt. For centuries he guarded the balance, keeping chaos far from the shore. He was not merely ruler, but steward of the sea's hidden harmony. And yet now he felt that harmony fray, like threads pulled apart. He stood upon cliffs, watching waves crash harder against the stone. He walked along beaches, listening to shells hum with hollow sound. Something beneath was weakening, and the sea itself seemed to grieve. Poseidon's temples filled with prayers from frightened sailors and fishermen. They begged him to calm storms and guide their ships to safety. He answered, but each prayer carried weight heavier than the last. Mortals believed storms were his wrath, but he knew a deeper truth. The sea was moving with a will beyond, even his command, and at its heart was the silent beat of the Kraken itself. Poseidon feared not the creature, but the silence now growing around it. The Kraken's heart was faltering, its rhythm dim as twilight fades. If the heart slowed, the ocean would lose its eternal balance. Life in every tide, every reef, every hidden trench would suffer. He felt it most clearly during a night when stars drowned in mist. The water lay still, though the winds raged fierce across the sky. His trident glowed faintly, trembling as though alive in his grasp. It pointed seaward, as if urging him toward some hidden truth. Poseidon closed his eyes and reached beyond waves, into the abyss. There, faint and distant, he sensed the weakening pulse of the heart. It was not gone, but fading, struggling against unseen currents. A god may not fear, yet Poseidon felt the weight of dread. The sea was his realm, yet the sea itself was greater still. He could not allow its essence to weaken, for all life would fade. The Kraken's heart must remain eternal, or chaos would claim the waters. He swore upon the salt and stone to uncover the reason why. The silence of the deep called to him like a solemn vow. He would descend into trenches where no god had walked in ages. He would face not monsters, but truths older than Olympus itself. And in those truths, he hoped to find the answer he sought. The balance of the world trembled, hidden beneath the restless tides. Even the moon's pull seemed weaker, as if weary in its duty. Stars above flickered, mirrored by the fading glow of the deep. Poseidon knew the time had come to act, before silence claimed all. For the sea without the heart was a body without breath or soul, and the god of the sea could not stand idle as it dimmed. Thus his journey began, not of conquest, but of solemn care. The ocean awaited him, heavy with secrets, vast with unspoken truth. And in its depths, the Kraken's heart pulsed faintly, waiting to be found. The sea called to Poseidon with a voice deeper than mortal sound. It was not the crash of waves or the rumble of storms above. It was the silence between tides, carrying weight heavier than thunder. He stood at the edge of his realm, listening with unblinking patience. The call was not of words, but of rhythm broken and uncertain. It drew him inward, toward the black trenches that swallowed all light. No mortal vessel could follow, no lantern could pierce that abyss. Yet Poseidon needed no ship, for the sea itself carried his form. He stepped into the surf, and water rose to greet him with trust. Each drop clung to him as though guiding him toward his destiny. Currents swirled around his feet, pulling gently as if to lead.
We must reach the shore.
The god closed his eyes, letting instinct guide him deeper still.
The storm is too
He felt the
strong.
ocean stir, as though welcoming him into its heart. The call grew stronger, thudding like a drum hidden behind silence. He recognized it, faint though it was, the pulse of the Kraken's heart. But it faltered, like a candle flickering in a restless wind. The abyss pulled him further, each league darker than the last. Coral palaces glittered faintly in the distance, long abandoned by time. Fish scattered as he passed, sensing the gravity of his journey. Seaweed swayed like silent choirs, bowing in rhythm to his presence. He descended past ruins of ships swallowed by centuries of storms. Masts stood like broken towers, wrapped in shadows and memory. Gold and jewels spilled from shattered hulls, ignored by the sea. For down here, treasure meant nothing beside the living pulse of water. The deeper he traveled, the more the silence pressed upon him. Even his divine breath felt heavy, as if weighed with sorrow. It was here the call grew sharp, tugging like an unseen tide. Poseidon tightened his grip on his trident, not in fear, but resolve. The sea was guiding him, urging him toward the hidden abyss. He passed canyons carved by time, walls rising like mountains of stone. Strange creatures drifted in the dark, glowing faintly with inner fire. They moved aside for him, as though aware of his purpose. The path narrowed until only darkness stretched ahead without end. There, at the mouth of the trench, he paused in stillness. The water here was colder, denser, heavy with unseen weight. Even Poseidon felt small before the vastness yawning before him. It was like standing before eternity itself, endless and unbroken. The call beat louder now, though muffled as if from afar. It echoed within his chest, matching the rhythm of his own heart. He knew the journey would take him deeper than any god had dared. But the sea had chosen him, and he could not turn away. For the Kraken's heart did not simply rest. It called to be heard. It was not asking for worship, nor offering power in return. It sought only to remind, to bind, to preserve what was fading. Poseidon bowed his head, acknowledging the solemn weight of his task. He stepped forward, leaving the light of the upper seas behind. Darkness closed in, yet he carried no fear of the unknown. The ocean itself had become his guide, his companion, his vow. And so he entered the trench, drawn by the silent call of destiny. The world above carried on, blind to the journey unfolding below. But in the deep, the sea prepared to reveal its most sacred truth. The Kraken's heart awaited him, pulsing faintly, fragile yet eternal. Poseidon moved deeper, where light itself dared not follow. The trench stretched downward like a stairway carved into forever. Each step took him closer to the rhythm echoing through the abyss. The water thickened, pressing against him like walls of living stone. Yet he did not resist, for the sea was his constant ally. Around him, shadows moved, slow and deliberate, like guardians of silence. Shapes larger than whales glided past, unseen but felt in presence. They did not threaten, only watched, curious of the god's descent. Bioluminescent lights dotted the path, flickers like stars in reverse sky. They pulsed faintly, answering the beat of the Kraken's heart below. Poseidon lifted his trident, its glow casting circles of gentle light. The weapon hummed, not with war, but with the song of the sea. He let it guide him, the compass pointing toward destiny's core. The water grew colder, but warmth flickered in the steady rhythm. The heart was close, and with it came echoes of memory. He heard whispers of sailors who once prayed to the deep. They called for mercy in storms, for passage through waves unkind. Some offered coins, others songs. Some gave only their final breath. The sea remembered each, holding their voices within its eternal tide. Poseidon felt their echoes now, drifting like a choir around him. Not cries of despair, but voices woven into the ocean's hymn. It was the song of connection, a bond unbroken by time. At last, he reached a vast chamber carved within the earth's bones. Its walls glimmered with crystal veins, glowing faintly in the dark. The chamber pulsed, alive, though no creature swam within its space. In the center, cradled by coral arms, rested the Kraken's heart. It was no organ of flesh, but a crystal forged by tides. It pulsed like a living star, each beat rippling across the water. Poseidon paused, humbled, for even a god must bow before such power. The heart glowed faintly blue, its light dim but unbroken. Each pulse seemed weaker than the last, like a fading breath. He stepped closer, feeling the rhythm synchronize with his own chest. The silence of the deep thickened, broken only by the steady thrum. Poseidon extended his hand, not to take, but to listen. The heart trembled, as if aware of his presence and intent. A warmth spread through his arm, climbing into his spirit. He saw visions unfold within the crystal's glow, vast and timeless. Oceans rising and falling, storms weaving across centuries of waves. The Kraken itself, guardian of the heart, once fierce but loyal. Its power had not been destruction, but balance across the seas. The heart held the memory of every tide, every storm, every calm. It was the rhythm that kept the ocean alive and eternal. Yet something threatened it now, draining its light, dulling its pulse. Poseidon felt it clearly, a shadow pressing from beyond the horizon. It was not a monster, nor a god, but something subtler still. The neglect of mortals, the forgetting of respect owed to the sea. Ships tearing its skin, nets scarring its depths, greed ignoring its voice. The Kraken's heart weakened not by battle, but by silence and disregard. Poseidon lowered his head, grief flickering in his immortal gaze. He knew then his task was not to claim, but to restore. The sea had called him, not for war, but for remembrance. He placed his trident before the heart, offering not command, but vow. Its light flickered, testing, then steadied as if acknowledging his promise. The chamber hummed with harmony, a song older than gods themselves. Poseidon stood silent, letting the rhythm pass through him completely. For in this moment, God and ocean beat with a single heart. And in the deep, hope stirred again, fragile but alive. Poseidon lingered in the chamber, the glow of the heart painting him in pale blue. The silence pressed, yet it was filled with whispers older than memory. He felt the ocean speaking, not in words, but in rhythm and tide. Each beat of the heart told a story, each thrum a fragment of eternity. The god listened, allowing the current of memory to wash over him. He saw visions of the Kraken rising, not as terror, but as guardian. Its vast form once shielded the seas from imbalance and reckless hunger. It had not destroyed, but restored, moving storms where needed most. The heart had guided it, a compass of harmony within chaos. Poseidon's breath slowed, his spirit synchronizing with the rhythm around him. The chamber became a temple, the sea itself bowing in stillness. But even here, shadows lingered, faint threads that dimmed the glow. The ocean showed him what it feared, forgetting, neglect, silence of mortals. A world above that took without gratitude, leaving wounds in its wake. The heart trembled under that weight, weakened by centuries of disregard. Poseidon closed his eyes, heavy with the truth he had seen. The sea was eternal, yet its song could fade without care. He raised his trident, pressing its base into the chamber floor. A hum spread outward, steady and calm, answering the fading pulse. The heart responded, flickering brighter for a moment of fragile strength. Its glow wrapped around him like a current seeking safe harbor. But the god knew his power alone could not restore its light. The ocean thrived on connection, on balance between all who touched it. Without remembrance, even gods could not mend what was fading. Poseidon lowered his trident, bowing his head in solemn resolve. The path forward would not be of force, but of remembrance. He must awaken mortals to the truth carried in the waves. Their voices, their songs, their gratitude could breathe strength into the sea. Without them, the Kraken's heart would dim until silence consumed it. The chamber shuddered as if in agreement, crystals vibrating in harmony. The sound was soft, but it echoed deeper than any thunder. Poseidon placed his palm upon the glowing surface of the heart. Warmth surged, and visions opened like tides spilling into his mind. He saw children laughing by the shore, offering shells to the sea. He saw sailors whispering prayers before journeys across stormy waters. He saw villages holding festivals to honor the ocean's bounty. Each act of gratitude was a spark feeding the heart's eternal glow. But he also saw silence, ships taking without thanks, harbors scarred by greed. The sparks dimmed, and with them, the great rhythm faltered in sorrow. The god drew back, his expression solemn, yet his spirit steady. The task was vast, but Poseidon was no stranger to eternity. He turned his gaze upward, where a distant light marked the world above. The sea whispered, urging him not to abandon the call. The heart pulsed once more, faint but insistent, asking for remembrance. Poseidon touched it again, this time with a vow spoken in silence. He would carry its rhythm beyond the depths, into mortal hearts, not as fear, not as wrath, but as story and song. For only through memory could the ocean's pulse grow strong again. The heart's glow steadied, fragile yet hopeful, answering his promise. Poseidon stepped back, his trident glowing faintly with borrowed light. The chamber's song softened, cradling him like a lullaby of tides. He turned toward the path he had taken, darkness awaiting his ascent. But now he carried more than his own power. He carried the vow. The ocean had spoken, and he would ensure its voice was heard. For in every tide, every storm, every calm, the heart must live. Poseidon left the chamber, the faint pulse of the Kraken's heart following him. And though the abyss closed behind, its rhythm echoed within his soul. Poseidon rose from the abyss, carrying the memory of the heart within. The water around him shifted, lighter now, yet still filled with weight. Every pulse of the Kraken's heart echoed through him like a steady drum. He was no longer simply returning, he was carrying a message. The sea stirred, waves moving in rhythm with his steady ascent upward. Creatures of the deep followed at a distance, drawn by unseen harmony. Their eyes glowed faintly, watching, as though guarding the vow he bore. The path upward seemed endless, but Poseidon felt no fatigue in it. The ocean carried him, currents parting like roads beneath his will. Coral walls shimmered faintly, touched by light filtering from far above. He passed ruins of ships, their timbers softened by centuries of tides. Their broken masts stood like monuments, reminders of forgotten journeys. Each hull whispered stories, once prayers, now echoes swallowed by the sea. Poseidon paused, sensing the weight of silence within those remains. He extended his trident, and a hum rolled gently through the water. The sound filled the wrecks, stirring faint glimmers of forgotten voices. Sailors' prayers echoed once more, carried upward in ripples of memory. The heart within him resonated, brighter for each whisper rekindled. He knew now the power of remembrance was not his alone to hold. It lived in every voice that once honored the sea with reverence. And so he continued, rising through layers of shifting blue and shadow. The water grew warmer, lighter, touched by sunlight above the surface. Schools of fish darted around him, forming spirals like living constellations. They seemed to celebrate, weaving patterns in honor of his journey. Dolphins leapt nearby, playful, yet their eyes carried knowing reverence. They whistled, their voices joining the rhythm pulsing through the sea. Poseidon felt the bond grow, stronger with each creature's song. The heart answered faintly, its glow steadying within his spirit. At last he neared the surface, where the boundary of worlds shimmered. The waves above danced with light, sparkling like a crown of stars. He broke through, rising into air heavy with salt and endless sky. The horizon stretched wide, and the wind rushed against his face. Yet he felt the same rhythm here, echoing in sky and wave. The sea welcomed him back, but its call remained solemn, insistent. He raised his trident high, and lightning curled along its edges. Not in wrath, but as a beacon, a signal across the horizon. The sky answered with thunder, rolling deep like the ocean's own voice. Seabirds wheeled above, crying out as if carrying the vow onward. The god closed his eyes, listening as the sea and sky merged. The heart within him pulsed, brighter now as though testing its reach. But Poseidon knew this was only the beginning of his task. Mortals above must be reminded, their voices called back into the tide. Without their reverence, the sea's song would fade into silence. He walked upon the surface, each step rippling like silver fire. Ships dotted the horizon, their sails catching the restless wind. He turned toward them, carrying not wrath, but the promise of truth. The sailors would hear him, not as storm, but as story. For remembrance was the gift, and gratitude the power it awakened. Poseidon lowered his trident, letting the sea still beneath his feet. The waves calmed, reflecting the pale glow that lingered in his eyes. Above, clouds parted, and sunlight broke like gold upon the water. The god breathed deep, the scent of salt and eternity filling him. The vow was alive, carried on wind, wave, and the steady beat. The Kraken's heart pulsed within, fragile yet luminous, asking only to endure. And Poseidon, with solemn grace, began his journey among mortals once more. Poseidon walked the rolling waves, his steps echoing with the vow he carried. The sea moved with him, calm yet powerful, like a choir at rest. Each crest rose gently, bowing beneath his feet as though honoring his path. The Kraken's heart beat faintly within, a rhythm guiding every stride forward. He scanned the horizon where sails clustered, ships drawn by unseen tide. Their masts pierced the sky, their flags snapping in the restless wind. Men and women worked upon their decks, unaware of the god near. Their songs were of labor, their voices heavy with weariness and salt. Yet beneath their words, Poseidon heard silence, a forgotten absence of prayer. Long ago, sailors had sung to him before journeys across the sea. They had offered coins, songs, and stories to the waves they trusted. Now their voices were quiet, their faith buried beneath years of neglect. Thus, heart inside him flickered, dimmed by that silence, trembling with need. Poseidon slowed, his gaze heavy, sorrow mirrored in the water below. The ocean waited, still and hushed, as if anticipating what he would do. He raised his trident, the metal gleaming with light stolen from the depths. The sea answered, its voice swelling in a low, resonant hum. Waves rippled outward, carrying the sound across miles of open water. The ships shuddered, their sails trembling as the current shifted beneath them. Sailors froze, looking out at the horizon where no storm brewed. Instead, the sea itself sang, a deep voice rising from its soul. It was not thunder, not wrath, but a story woven in rhythm. The sailors felt it, hearts tightening with a memory they could not name. They dropped their tools, their eyes wide, searching for the source unseen. Poseidon stood upon the waves, his figure gleaming against the fading sky. No lightning struck, no storm raged, yet his presence filled the horizon. The trident glowed, not with power to destroy, but with the sea's memory. The sailors bowed, instinct older than reason stirring in their blood. One by one they whispered words their ancestors once spoke to the sea. Some prayed softly, others sang fragments of songs long thought forgotten. The heart within Poseidon brightened, pulsing stronger with each voice given. The rhythm grew, weaving itself into waves, sky, and every heartbeat. Gratitude flowed like a current, binding mortals once more to the ocean. The god's sorrow eased, replaced with quiet hope blooming like dawn. He lowered his trident, the sea calming, but the song still alive. The ships steadied, their sails filling with winds both gentle and kind. The sailors wept, though they knew not why, touched by unseen memory. Their tears fell into the sea, offerings carried back into its depths. The heart glowed warmly, steady now, no longer trembling in silence. Poseidon smiled faintly, rare and solemn, for he felt the bond restored. But he knew this was only a beginning, not the end of the vow. The world was wide, and countless voices had yet to remember. The ocean's song must be carried further, across every shore and tide. He turned from the ships, his steps carrying him toward distant lands. The waves whispered beneath him, each one echoing the promise renewed. Seabirds followed overhead, their cries weaving into the growing chorus. The sky burned gold with sunset, reflecting upon the water like fire. Poseidon walked on, steady and unbroken, the vow alive within him. The Kraken's heart beat strong now, though still fragile, asking to endure. And so he carried it forward, into the world of mortals and memory. For the sea was eternal, but its song required voices to survive. And Poseidon would ensure those voices were never silenced again. Poseidon moved toward distant shores, his steps steady upon the silver sea. The world of mortals stretched wide, waiting for the vow he carried. The Kraken's heart pulsed within him, faint but steady, guiding his path. He felt the weight of memory, fragile yet powerful in its silence. Ahead, an island rose, green and golden beneath the evening sky. Its cliffs stood tall, waves striking them with songs of endless time. Villagers walked the shore, their nets cast wide into the surf. Their laughter carried on the wind, simple and unburdened by old prayers. Yet Poseidon heard the absence, a hollow space in their joy. They lived with the sea but no longer spoke to its spirit. Their ancestors once sang hymns, leaving offerings of bread and wine. Now their voices were lost, buried beneath centuries of forgetfulness. The god felt sorrow, yet not anger, for silence breathed slowly. He stepped closer, the waves parting, his figure shimmering in twilight. Children saw him first, pointing with eyes wide and hearts uncertain. They whispered to one another, wondering if he was dream or mist. The elders came, cautious, their steps heavy with memory they denied. Poseidon raised his trident, but gently, as a sign of peace. The sea stilled around him, calm as glass, awaiting his voice. He spoke not with thunder, but with words carried on the tide. His voice was low, deep as the ocean floor, filled with memory. "Once you sang to the sea," he said, "and it sang back to you." The villagers trembled, for the sound stirred something deep inside them. The children pressed close, sensing wonder, though they did not understand. An elder stepped forward, his hands shaking, his eyes wet with silence.
Is that him?
"We forgot,"
Must be.
he whispered,
He has returned.
"and in forgetting, we lost the song." Poseidon nodded, sorrow and hope mingling in his ancient gaze. "The sea remembers," he answered, "but it longs to hear you again." The Kraken's heart pulsed, light spilling faintly from Poseidon's chest. It shone like a lantern, fragile, glowing with memory and promise. The villagers gasped, covering their mouths, awe breaking through their fear. One by one, they began to hum, voices trembling but sincere. A song rose, rough at first, then smoother as memory returned. It was an old melody, carried through blood though never spoken aloud. The waves lifted gently, cradling their song, carrying it to the deep. Fish darted near the shore, drawn by the rhythm of their voices. Seabirds circled above, their cries weaving into the growing harmony. The elders wept openly, remembering stories their fathers once told. Children laughed through song, their joy bright as dawn breaking anew. Poseidon listened, and within him, the heart glowed brighter, steady.
The storm is
Its rhythm matched the villagers' voices, weaving memory into song. The bond was alive again, fragile but glowing with promise. The god lowered his trident, letting the moment stand without command. The sea itself answered, waves rolling softly in time with the song. The villagers fell silent, listening, their hearts wide and unafraid. They knew now the sea was not merely water, but voice and soul. Poseidon looked upon them, his expression solemn, yet touched with grace. "This is the vow," he said, "that you and I must carry." The villagers nodded, their voices ready, their memory awakened. The heart within him glowed like fire in the quiet of night. Poseidon turned, stepping back into the sea, leaving them their song. He did not linger, for countless others waited beyond these shores. The vow was greater than one village, greater than one island's memory. It belonged to all who lived by the sea, whether they knew or not. The waves closed behind him, carrying whispers of the villagers' song. The heart pulsed brighter, steady with each note it carried forward. Poseidon moved into the night, toward distant lands, steady and eternal. For the sea's voice had been heard again, and it would not fade. Poseidon journeyed onward, leaving the island's song behind him in the waves. The sea stretched wide, a mirror of stars glimmering upon its skin. The Kraken's heart pulsed within him, steady now, alive with new memory. Every beat carried whispers of voices reborn, woven into the tide. The night was calm, but he felt the pull of distant silence. Not all shores remembered, and not all hearts had lifted their voices. He followed the current, guided by unseen rhythms older than time. It led him toward a coast where stone temples once crowned the cliffs. There, centuries ago, mortals had built altars to honor the sea's might. Now the temples lay in ruin, swallowed by ivy, forgotten by men. The waves lapped softly against them, carrying echoes of lost devotion. Poseidon stepped ashore, his feet leaving no mark upon the sand. The air was heavy, still, carrying only the faint hum of insects. He walked among the ruins, each broken pillar a memory of faith. The Kraken's heart flickered within him, dimmed by the silence around. He touched the stone, feeling the absence, as if the walls wept. This place had once sung with hymns, but now it was hollow. He raised his trident, and the ground trembled beneath forgotten echoes. The air shifted, whispers rising from the cracks in ancient stone. They were not screams, not wails, but fragments of voices long gone. Old prayers unfurled like dust, lifted from shelves of eternity. The villagers of long ago had poured their hearts into this place. Their voices stirred now, faint as candlelight in the vast dark. The heart glowed gently, drinking in each spark of returning memory. Poseidon closed his eyes, listening, letting the silence transform to song. It was incomplete, fragile, a song missing the breath of the living. He turned toward the sea, calling softly for its aid once more. The waves answered, rolling higher, brushing the shore with gentle power. The ocean's voice rose, low and steady, filling the broken temple. It carried the fragments of prayer upward, weaving them into melody. Above, the stars shimmered, their light bending as if to listen. Poseidon's voice joined, not thunderous, but steady as the tide itself. He sang the words mortals had forgotten, syllables old as creation. The ruins shone faintly, the stones glowing with silver light. The Kraken's heart pulsed in harmony, brighter now, its rhythm firm. The broken temple seemed to breathe, alive with memory once again. From the nearby village, mortals gathered, drawn by unseen calling. They stood at the cliff's edge, gazing down in fear and awe. Children clutched their mothers, men whispered uncertain prayers of protection. Yet their eyes widened as they saw Poseidon among the ruins. He stood tall, his form shining with sea foam and starlight entwined. The villagers gasped, for they recognized him from stories half forgotten. Some fell to their knees, others sang softly, voices trembling with hope. The god raised his trident, and the sea answered with calm light. The waves glowed faintly, as though the stars had fallen into them. The villagers wept, not with terror, but with the relief of memory. They joined the song, their voices adding breath to the broken hymn. The temple walls shuddered, cracks glowing as old carvings reappeared. Fish leapt from the sea, dolphins whistled, seabirds circled above. All creation seemed to join, lifting the vow higher than before. The heart within Poseidon burned bright, its rhythm whole and steady. It carried the voices of mortals, gods, and sea in unity. The villagers bowed, not out of fear, but in solemn reverence. Poseidon lowered his trident, letting the sea rest once more. The ruins glowed faintly, no longer silent, but alive with song. He looked upon the villagers, his eyes deep as the endless ocean. "Remember," he said softly, "and the sea will always remember you." The villagers nodded, their hearts awakened, their voices ready to endure. Poseidon turned back toward the water, the vow steady within him. The Kraken's heart glowed like dawn, carrying the song into eternity. And with calm steps, he returned to the waves, seeking new shores. The sea stretched wide before Poseidon, endless and eternal beneath the sky. He walked its surface, each step carrying the vow further into time. The Kraken's heart pulsed within him, steady now, bright with memory renewed. Every beat echoed with the voices of mortals who had remembered. Every wave carried songs once forgotten, now alive upon the tide. He had seen silence in villages, ruins, and shores long abandoned. But he had also seen faith reborn, small sparks growing into flame. The vow was not a burden, but a bond, fragile yet unbroken. The ocean whispered around him, its voice deeper than words could hold. It was not only his vow, but the vow of every living soul. He paused, gazing toward the horizon where dawn broke like fire. The sun rose slow, painting the sea with gold and crimson light. The waves shimmered as though crowned with jewels of the morning. Poseidon lifted his trident, not in wrath, but in solemn promise. The sea rose gently, carrying the light into every corner of the deep. Creatures stirred, from the smallest fish to the giants of the abyss. They swam in harmony, their movements woven into the song of life. The Kraken's heart glowed brighter, not heavy but radiant within him. It was no longer fragile, for it was fed by countless voices. Every song, every prayer, every whisper kept it alive, steady and true. Poseidon smiled faintly, a rare grace softening the god of storms. He had carried silence into light, sorrow into memory, loss into song. But the journey was not his alone, for the vow belonged to all. He knew the sea would endure, for it was not forgotten anymore. The mortals would sing again, and the ocean would answer in kind. Their voices would keep the bond alive, woven through generations unborn. The trident gleamed with dawn, casting silver fire upon the waves. Poseidon lowered it, letting the sea rest, calm and bright, with promise. The god turned his gaze to the horizon, where countless lands awaited. He would walk their shores, not as wrath, but as story and song. The vow would spread like tide, carried on winds and whispers alike. Every wave would bear it. Every shore would hold its echo. And so, Poseidon continued, stepped steady upon the endless sea. The sun climbed higher, its light wrapping him in warmth and fire. The Kraken's heart beat strong, its rhythm now one with his own. He listened to it, a reminder of fragility transformed into strength. For the sea was eternal, but its voice thrived through remembrance. And remembrance, once born, could never truly fade again. Seabirds wheeled above him, their cries weaving into the morning chorus. Dolphins leapt near his path, splashing silver arcs into the light. The god walked onward, his figure gleaming against the boundless horizon. No storm followed him, only calm, vast, and infinite peace. The ocean itself seemed to sing, a hymn of renewal and grace. The vow was alive, carried forward by gods, mortals, and the sea. Poseidon closed his eyes, breathing deep of salt and eternity. He felt the bond whole, stronger than it had ever been before. And with each step, he carried it into tomorrow, eternal and true. The sea shimmered, golden, endless, filled with memory and song everlasting. And so the tale of Poseidon and the Kraken's heart reached its end, not in silence, but in harmony, not in wrath, but in remembrance. The god of the sea walked on, his vow eternal as the tide,